to be at Mara's Pharmacy. I want to thank the longtime owner and pharmacist, Assemblyman John McDonald, for hosting us and for being an integral part of this community. I also want to thank our Cohoes Mayor, Bill Keeler, and Gail Myers, Deputy Director of the New York State-wide Senior Action Council, for joining us, and how we can talk about the rising cost of prescription drugs. While Americans have been struggling with health and economic challenges over the past 2 years, we saw the drug makers' already exorbitant prices on hundreds of drugs continue to rise. And those increases are on top of the already high costs we face here in America. Today, when you go to the pharmacy, you could be charged 2 or 3 times as much as people in other countries for the exact same medicine. Too many people get to the pharmacy counter and fear what the total will be, wondering if they'll have to ration their medication or forego it altogether. 30% of adults said that they had not taken their medicine as prescribed because it simply costs too much money. This issue weighs especially heavily on our seniors. Nearly 9 in 10 older adults take prescription medications, and 1 in 4 say it is difficult to afford them. Even with the help from Medicare, the portion of prescription drug costs that older adults are responsible can be overwhelming on a fixed income. And Medicare is facing rising costs as well. Prices increased faster than inflation for half the drugs covered by Medicare. For half the drugs covered by Medicare in 2020. And those increases are already higher than we would have ever imagined. As a member of the Aging Committee, addressing these costs is one of my top priorities. Healthcare is a human right. It should not be a privilege for just those who can afford it. Healthcare is something that is life-saving and is something that every family needs affordable access. It's why I've introduced my prescription for lower drug prices and pushing congressional leadership to take up the bill and get a vote on it now. My plan has 5 steps to help bring down the cost of drugs so that people of New York can afford medications that they need to stay healthy. 1, create an annual review process to look for excessive pricing of brand name drugs. If the Department of Health and Human Services found that they were overpriced, they could void their government-granted exclusivity and open the door to generics. 2, we have to allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices the same way that the VA and Medicaid already do. That would save seniors and the government money. The CBO estimates it would save the government more than $450 billion in just 10 years. 3, we need to let people import lower-cost drugs from Canada. It makes no sense that drugs are cheaper across the border and we can't access them here. 4, we should expand the Extra Help subsidy program for low-income seniors to people living in the U.S. territories. Where you live should not determine whether or not you can afford your prescription. And 5, we need to reimagine financial assistance for Medicare. That means streamlining programs, eliminating asset tests, and expanding the Extra Help program. These are common sense reforms, and it's time to make them real. I'll keep working with leadership to make sure we can get a vote on these bills. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, Mayor Bill Keeler, and he was supposed to be first, but I didn't read the chart. I didn't listen to my staff. You go first, Mayor.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Cohoes Mayor Bill Keeler, and for those of you that are here for the first time, welcome. Thank you for coming out. For those familiar faces here, elected officials and others, welcome back. To all, we are delighted that you could join us today here on historic Remsen Street. And what better place to talk about the affordability and accessibility of prescription drugs than here at Mara's Pharmacy. Mara's is it's an iconic place, not just for Cohoes, but for the region. And John, we thank you and your family and your staff here for the many things that you do for the community. Today, I'm particularly honored to welcome Senator Gillibrand back to Cohoes. And she has championed efforts to improve the health of our communities and families in many ways. Before I get to the topic of the day, which is prescription drugs, I want to take a moment to talk about one of the other health and safety issues that Senator Gillibrand has championed, and that is water safe drinking water infrastructure. So I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank Senator Gillibrand and her staff for recently securing a $2.5 million grant that we will use to repair 3 of our water storage tanks, as well as to get some work underway on our circa 1911 water filtration plant. When we brought the idea to her office about a year ago, Senator Gillibrand and her staff immediately recognized the importance of investing $1.8 million now, as opposed to waiting and having to replace these 3 storage tanks at a cost of $6 million. And likewise, the senators saw how important it was to get the work underway as soon as possible at our water filtration plant. So, we're very grateful. I thank Senator Gillibrand and her staff again. But, it's not just the people of Cohoes that benefit. Our drinking water system serves nearby Waterford and Green Island and Colony. So, again, thank you for providing safe drinking water to all. So, with that said, the work that you were doing on the topic of the day is prescription drugs, and in a working class city like Cohoes, accessibility to prescription drugs is not just an academic issue for debate, it's a kitchen table problem in need of solving, and you are addressing this. So we're grateful for your leadership in working to find solutions to protect the health of all in our community, but particularly our vulnerable seniors. For them and too many others, prescription drugs are not just essential, but they're becoming just too expensive. So we thank you for listening, we thank you for your advocacy, and we thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Our next speaker is Assemblymember John McDonald.
Well, thank you, first of all, Senator, for coming to Marist. We appreciate it. But more importantly, thank you for your agenda. I've been blessed to work in pharmacy for 30-plus years. I usually know how much drugs cost more than the patients do. And admittedly, there have been some programs out there that have helped improve access, but we have much further to go. As a member of the Health Committee, the Insurance Committee, and the Higher Ed Committee in the state legislature, we work day in and day out, particularly through our budget, to expand coverage, to bring people into the fold, to give them opportunity. However, at the same token, it's the federal government, our partner, that is the one that is actually able to work with the manufacturers to demand accountability, to make sure that there's not price gouging on at all, and to make sure that the parameters are set. The importation from Canada is something that we all will benefit from if it becomes a reality. The ability to negotiate with these drug manufacturers and focus more on outcomes and actually giving people the opportunity to live a healthy life is critical. So, Senator, thank you for being here. Thank you for your agenda. We are fully behind it.
Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Gail Myers, Deputy Director, New York Statewide Senior Action Council.
Mr. McDonald knows me well. Hi, everybody. I am Gail Myers. I'm Deputy Director of New York Statewide Senior Action Council. We are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year as a not-for-profit serving older New Yorkers. So, yes, thrilled about that. And part of the reason that we are so pleased to be here is because this package of bills will really make a kitchen table difference to older New Yorkers, and as the pharmacist pointed out, to everyone who comes for prescription drugs by lowering costs. But I wanted to tell you that this is a kitchen table issue for seniors. They are calling our office. We do free services for them and help them, guide them to the appropriate coverage that they need and help them resolve problems throughout the year. And they come and they are calling us about their anxiety about costs going up for everything. And one of the things that we can help them with is their Medicare premium costs and their prescription drug costs. The bills that the Senator is putting forward today will even help more people get those benefits, and that's what's incredibly important. People think that when you have Medicare, you're covered. And Medicare is wonderful. We need to improve it. We need to make it available for all. But Medicare is wonderful. But did you know that the average Medicare enrollee pays over $5,000 a year in out-of-pocket Medicare-covered costs? And that's Medicare covered costs, right? That's not the things that Medicare doesn't cover that you're also working on. Dental and hearing and vision and long-term care. So the covered costs, prescription drug costs, out-of-pocket costs, deductibles. It is not something that people can afford. And sometimes it's a surprise. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what our needs are going to be when we get sick. And then all of a sudden to be hit with these kind of bills is just amazing. So I wanted to share with you a couple of stories about local people that we have helped to give you the flavor for this. So Jim is a resident of Guilderland. He called us for help. His only income is Social Security. He receives just under 150% of the federal poverty level, so he qualifies for the Extra Help program currently. But he doesn't qualify for the Medicare Savings Program. What's the difference? Well, the Extra Help program will help keep his co-payments down for his pharmacy costs if everything works out well. And as we know, it doesn't always work out so well because there are formularies, there are exceptions, there are all kinds of things that people have to do when they get to the counter here. But he had that coverage. What he didn't have is the coverage that helped him with his Medicare premium. So the Medicare premium is $170 a month right now. And he called because his rent went up by $100. And he's isolated at home because he can't get his car repaired. He doesn't have enough money to get his car back on the road. And what we were able to think through is what other options would there be available for him. Under the Senator's proposal to expand these programs to 200% of the federal poverty level, he would be able to save that $170 a month. That's no small change. That's enough to pay his rent. That's enough to get his car back on the road. That's enough to restore his quality of life and his dignity living by himself at home. So that's one case. Another is Julie. Julie's an Albany resident. She found out what the cost of her drugs would be in the middle of the year when she'd already made her choices. We can help with that. Standing right at a pharmacy counter. Not this one, but the story has happened here. Where she was sick. She went to the doctor's office. She got a prescription. She came to the pharmacy counter. She was told what the cost of the drug was, and she left without it. Now, luckily, we have a good relationship with a lot of the pharmacists in the area, like Mr. McDonald, and they referred her to our office so that we were able to give her some strategies. But when you are sick, that is not the time to be dealing with strategies. Call my doctor, get an appeal. How long will that take? What do I do about getting the drug until that point? Why do I still have these symptoms? I'm sick. Somebody needs to help me. I'm sick. So that's the story that happens every single day. There are charity programs that the pharmaceutical industry runs. Oh, if your prescription cost is too high, call us. We will try to help you. Well, let's help everybody in America. Let's help everybody in New York. Let's bring down the cost of the drugs so that it is not that anxiety and stress and that kitchen table discussion about not being able to afford to continue to live in Albany, in any county in the state, because you're living on the edge and you need the supports you need. So there's a few other bills in the package, but I just wanted to point out that if that one bill goes through, its value is about $7,000 a year to people who aren't covered right now. $7,000, because the Extra Help program, on average, is about $5,000 of benefit. And the piece about raising the eligibility for the Medicare premium relief is about $170 a month, another $2,000. So we're talking about real money in people's pockets by making this really very sensible change. So that is one of the things I wanted to share on that. On the rest of the package of bills, I want to tell you just for a moment a little bit about statewide history. We have been a long time advocating for pharmacy coverage and relief. And this is a picture of 2004 when we chartered buses and brought them to Canada, to Montreal, for seniors before there was a federal prescription drug program, to be able to purchase their drugs. So the parts of the bills that the Senator is talking about to deal with the pricing of drugs, to be benchmarked to Canada and other countries, to be able to allow the importation of Canadian drugs. We were there in 2004. You were busy at the time, but we're really, really pleased to see that you are pushing those agenda items. one of the things happened after this, we got national news before CNN was really a thing, so it was really exciting. But one of the things that happened after that, right, was the 2006, the Medicare Part D program came along. And while it was good to have a Medicare program coverage, it was not good that they prohibited the negotiation of Medicare drugs.
Yeah,
absolutely unacceptable. And the bill that the senator, one of the bills in the package that the senator is talking about, would change that. We don't have that ban on the VA. It's working just fine. Medicare is like the biggest purchaser in the country, if you think about it, along with Medicaid on prescription drugs. And we need to be able to make sure that we negotiate and get the best prices with that buying power. So that is incredibly important. We have been there. We will continue to be there. I urge your listeners, our viewers, the senator's constituents, all of New York, to call our office if you need help. If we can't help you, somebody else can. But let's end this patchwork of figuring out, why is my drug so much? What should I do about that? And how do I get some relief so that I can spend some money on groceries and maybe a new dress to go to my grandchild's high school graduation, things that are really, really important. So thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
Anybody else want to speak? Okay, we're happy to take on-topic questions first, please.
I have one about the judge's ruling on the redistricting of the state's congressional districts. We're just looking for your response on that.
I think he's wrong, but it will be appealed.
What do you think of Biden's gas plans?
I think they're smart. We have to lower the price of gasoline, and releasing whatever it was, millions of gallons from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve will help. Putin's war in Ukraine is really hampering the world oil market, and so we can do whatever we can here to try to lower the price. And one of the quickest things we can do is use some oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We can also get rid of the gas tax, both of which I support.
And on the topic of Ukraine, what do you think we should be doing that we're not possibly doing?
We're doing everything that the Ukrainian government and people need and have asked for right now, short of starting World War III. And so our goal is to give them all the munitions, the weapons, the anti-aircraft, the anti-tank, all the extraordinary amount of munitions that has gone in is quite astounding. The great news is that the Ukrainian people are willing to fight, and they are not giving up. And we stand shoulder to shoulder with them against Putin, and we will continue to do so. We also are giving a lot of humanitarian relief. When I was in Poland, I saw directly how generous the Polish people are being right now to those Ukrainian families that need help. They've opened their homes and are helping families survive this moment. The interesting thing about this crisis is that the Ukrainian people do not want to be refugees for very long. They want to get right back to their country. They want to rebuild it, and we will give them the resources to rebuild it. I'm urging us to tighten sanctions because the oligarchs have a lot of apartment buildings in New York City. So we should take all of them back, and we should use the resources that when we sell them to help Ukraine rebuild. And so more aggressive sanctions, holding oligarchs, generals, and the government, members of the government who voted for this war accountable, because this is a human rights violation. And I think both President Putin and his generals are war criminals.
And finally, do you think Congress should impeach Clarence Thomas, or should there be some kind of code of ethics for Supreme
There definitely needs to be a code of ethics, and I have legislation right now to ban the Supreme Court justices from trading stocks with non-public information. There's another bill that I support that requires more disclosure. They are often receiving gifts and trips from advocacy organizations that may well have business in front of the court. I think they need full ethics reform. And then second, I think the House needs to do a full investigation about Ginny Thomas's role on January 6th and what she was urging the president to do. And so I think he has to recuse himself on all issues related to January 6th, and anything further needs to be more developed and further investigated. Anything else? All right, thanks guys for coming out, and thanks to all our leaders here.
Can you just take up the pharmacy and meet the staff?
Yes,
You got 2
yes.
minutes, all right?
I'm going to meet the staff of the pharmacy. Let's go do it.
Can I get some shots up there? Is that okay?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you will.